What a lovely welcome. Is that all for me? Good morning, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, two Prime Ministers on the stage with me here. I am Zainab Badawi, and it is my great pleasure, privilege and honour to be presiding over this very, very key landmark event at CHOGM this year in London, my home city. Wonderful city, of course. And I'm sure you all heard the wonderful sounds from the Commonwealth resounds. Didn't you think they were terrific? Absolutely. And did you notice that they come from all the 53 Commonwealth countries, and did you see some of them were dressed in flags and national costumes and so on? And you know what? They actually really are emblematic of what the Commonwealth stands for. Collaboration from people of all ethnicities, from all these countries. And that is the theme, of course, of CHOGM 2018, working towards a common future, common prosperity, common peace for everybody in the Commonwealth. And, you know, resounds, I should say, by the way, they came to us also with the help of the London-based Rotary clubs, who do a great deal when it comes to Commonwealth activities. And that is what this morning's plenary is about. And it's the first time that we've combined all of you together. You see what a crowd. You extend all the way back. We've had the forum, the youth forum, the civil society, business and women, the gender forum. And you've all been brought together to listen to what our keynote speakers are going to be talking about and how they're all going to do their own part in delivering the shared values and the common objectives that underpin the Commonwealth. So, who better to start off with all this than the Secretary-General of the Commonwealth? Patricia Scotland, a woman I've known for many, many years. And when it comes to Patricia, I mean, it's just a series of superlatives. The first this, the first that. You know, the first black woman to become a QC, the first woman to lead the Commonwealth, and the first woman to have held the position of Attorney General since 1315. My goodness, that must be a record. Patricia. We are all agog.
Prime Minister May, Prime Minister Holness, Excellencies, distinguished Speaker Mr. Gates, Commonwealth friends and colleagues, good morning.
Good morning.
You got that so right. But what a gathering, what a gathering. This is more than a plenary session of a conference. Today, this building becomes more than a conference centre. Across Parliament Square are the House of Commons and the House of Lords. And you are making this the House of Dreams. Not unfulfillable dreams, realisable dreams, the aspiration and the vision of the Commonwealth Charter. 2 weeks ago, we marked the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. He is honoured as a martyr of the 20th century with a statue above the great door of Westminster Abbey, across the road from this very building. Martin Luther King famously declared, "I have a dream." We too have dreams, the vision of a common future. Aspirations for a future that is fairer, more prosperous, more sustainable, and more secure. We are working to make those dreams the new reality, here, today, now. For all of those, we represent our 2.4 billion sisters and brothers in 53 countries of the Commonwealth. We are one third of humanity. Now, there is another statue across the road from this building, honouring one of the greatest sons of the Commonwealth, Nelson Mandela. This year is the centenary of his birth. With sagacity to match his humility, Madiba observed, "The anchor of all our dreams, my dreams," he said, "is the collective wisdom of mankind as a whole." Collective wisdom is our greatest Commonwealth asset. Indeed, as I said in my Commonwealth Day message this year, we draw wisdom and insights from secular streams of thought and from many communities and traditions that are the sea of faith. And I have faith in our Commonwealth. And do you know why? Because we all draw wisdom and inspiration from business, from youth, from our women, and from civil society. And each and all of these tributaries are adding to the glorious diversity by their hinterland to our vast Commonwealth ocean of knowledge and understanding. This practical grounding to all our collaboration means that collectively we are responsive to needs. Most valuably, it enables us to scan the horizon from many vantage points and perspectives, alert to emerging threats and on the lookout for fresh opportunities. We then take counsel together. We plan, we imagine, we innovate. And as a convoy on high seas or a caravan in the desert, we draw protection from being together. And we guard to make sure that none are left behind. These are not poetic flights of fancy. They are practical realities for a globalized world. At the Commonwealth, we were made for this moment. It is indeed, we are together indeed, the face of the future. So this house of dreams can fire our imagination. Imagination can be turned into reality. And the outworking of the reality towards a common future becomes our Commonwealth future. We are joined together not by treaty, but by will. We are choosing to be members of this Commonwealth, conjoined by our values, which are precious, hard-won, and durable. So, imagination can be turned into reality. And as I say, the outworking of that reality towards a common future becomes our Commonwealth future. Friends and colleagues, comrades and counterparts, let me leave you with some words of Nelson Mandela, who, as a young man, stood in the street outside this very building, looking skywards, and dreamed of a better future. And he said this: vision without action is just a dream. Action without vision just passes the time. And vision with action can change the world. This is what we are doing together now, changing the world. And our Commonwealth, our 1/3 of the world, can, if we choose, lead the way for a common future, not just for our Commonwealth, but for everyone. And so, I know in this room we have everything we need to do that. So go change the world.
Thank you very much indeed, Patricia, there for reminding us of the importance of turning visions into realities. Our next speaker is, of course, the Right Honourable Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Theresa May, been Prime Minister since 2016. And got a lot of family and friends here with you this morning, haven't you, Prime Minister? And of course, I should say you are the host for the Commonwealth, and you're going to be the Commonwealth Chair in office for the next 2 years. And the Prime Minister is going to be touching all bases on just what we would like to see the Commonwealth achieve in her speech. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Zainab, and good morning, everybody. And it's an honour for the UK to serve as host for the 25th Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, and it's a pleasure to welcome the world to our wonderful capital city. London, perhaps more than any other place, embodies what the Commonwealth is all about. It's a city that draws strength from its diversity, that welcomes people from every continent and unites them as part of a greater whole. And it's a city that is rightly proud of the contribution made to its history by members of this very special and enduring family of nations, a contribution that contributes to this day and which we will always value. As we meet in this most Commonwealth of cities, the Commonwealth itself must confront global uncertainty. It is a time when our members and the wider world are faced both with emerging new threats and with the resurgence of challenges and arguments many thought had been consigned to history. Free and fair trade, which for decades has helped to lift hundreds of millions out of poverty, is under threat from a new wave of protectionism. Climate change imperils not only lives and property, but also risks undoing half a century of progress by pushing millions back below the poverty line. And health risks continue to evolve, be it through antimicrobial resistance or the rise in non-communicable conditions such as diabetes and heart disease. These are global challenges that require global solutions. Yet at the very moment that international cooperation is so important, some nations are choosing instead to shun the rules-based international system that underpins global security and prosperity. And the danger of the rules-based system being undermined is nowhere more obvious right now than in Syria. On top of the huge suffering inflicted on the Syrian people by years of conflict, we have seen a persistent pattern of behaviour in the Syrian regime's use of chemical weapons, most recently in the barbaric attack on Douma earlier this month. That the use of chemical weapons is morally wrong and strictly prohibited is one of the international community's most protected norms. Yet in Syria, we risk seeing that principle eroded. We cannot allow the use of chemical weapons to become normalised, either within Syria or on the streets of the UK or elsewhere. So through international cooperation, we must reinforce the rules-based system and ensure it is protected for future generations. And it has never been more critical that the Commonwealth demonstrate its capacity and willingness to make a difference and provide support, both for the rules-based order and the very concept of international cooperation. But I am confident that our family of nations can rise to these challenges, because the Commonwealth is unique. No other organisation can rival both our geographical and cultural diversity while giving all nations an equal role, an equal voice and equal standing. From small tropical islands to the vast Arctic tundra, from nations of just a few thousand people to countries that are home to hundreds of millions, the modern Commonwealth is a snapshot of the world at large. And many of the challenges faced by the world today are challenges being tackled across the Commonwealth every day. And when we capture a consensus on how to deal with them, it gives us a truly global voice that no regional body can claim. And that is why everywhere I look this week, I see a Commonwealth that is optimistic about its future. I see it in the return of the Gambia, which left our family of nations at the behest of a dictator, but has been welcomed back following free and fair elections. I see it in the new generation of leaders arriving here in London, Prime Ministers like Jacinda Ardern, Roosevelt Skerrit, and of course, Andrew Holness. All were born in the closing decades of the 20th century, and all have their eyes fixed firmly on the possibilities of the 21st. I see it in business leaders who are forging new links, driving exciting innovations and creating opportunities that will benefit millions. Most of all, I see it in the members of the Commonwealth Youth Forum. 500 exceptional young people from around the world, united in their desire to make their communities, their nations, their Commonwealth, and their world a better place for us all. And those 500 young people here in London represent many more around the world. While the Commonwealth of Nations is nearly 70 years old, the people it serves are far younger. Today, some 60% of Commonwealth citizens are under the age of 30. If they are to be inspired and engaged by the Commonwealth, if this organisation is to maintain its relevance and fulfil its potential, then we must meet the challenges that the Youth Forum and others have laid at our feet. We must deal with the problems they have highlighted, showing that the Commonwealth is capable of shaping a safer, prosperous, more sustainable world for all of us. So let us use our unique voice to shape global opinion. Let us use our diversity to generate new solutions to our problems and the world's problems. And let us lead by example, working together to light the path towards our common future. So let us begin by making this a more sustainable Commonwealth. Our members know only too well the many threats faced by the world's oceans. That's why this week I want us to agree a landmark blue charter to safeguard our seas for generations to come. That charter sets out the principles by which member countries will lead international efforts by sustainably developing and protecting their oceans. It's a commitment to real action that will benefit members and non-members alike. In addition, the UK will be working with Vanuatu to lead the Commonwealth Clean Oceans Alliance, investing more than £61 million to help fellow members tackle the scourge of plastic pollution and support the sustainable growth of marine economies. We're only meeting in London this week because of the devastation wrought on Vanuatu by Cyclone Pam in 2015. The impact of other recent extreme weather events in the Caribbean and Pacific have underlined the vulnerability of smaller states across the Commonwealth. So I'm proud to say that the UK, long a supporter of such nations, is investing a further £44 million to help improve members' ability to prepare for and deal with natural disasters of all kinds. It's an issue Prime Minister Holness and I have already spoken about this morning. But extreme weather is not the only threat our people face from nature. Today, some 90% of Commonwealth citizens live in countries where malaria is endemic. Worldwide, the disease kills 445,000 people every year, many in the Commonwealth and most of them children. Malaria has a serious impact on the economies of countries it affects. The human cost is incalculable. We cannot talk to the young people of the world, talk about securing a legacy for our children and grandchildren without tackling a disease that worldwide kills one of them every 2 minutes. And that is why this week I will be calling on my fellow leaders to commit to halving malaria across the Commonwealth by 2023. It's an ambitious... It is an ambitious goal, but one that is firmly within our reach. Since the Commonwealth heads of government last met, Sri Lanka has been declared malaria-free. Malaysia is on course to eliminate the disease by 2020. And since the year 2000, global malaria deaths have been cut by more than 60%, the result of a concerted effort by governments, civil society groups and individuals alike. And Bill, you and Melinda deserve particular praise for all the work you have done in the fight against this disease. Your philanthropy has saved countless lives, but your tireless campaigning has kept the issue firmly on the global agenda, including at tomorrow's Malaria Summit. The UK remains committed to its 5-year pledge made in 2016 to spend £500 million a year tackling malaria. Over the next 2 years, 100 million of that will be match funded by partners in the private sector. And I know other Commonwealth nations are also among the biggest funders of this global effort. That is as it should be. Malaria devastates lives worldwide, but it has a particular impact on the Commonwealth, and we as a Commonwealth have a duty to tackle it. Now, alongside threats from nature, we're also faced with individuals, organisations and others who seek to do us harm. So let's make this a more secure Commonwealth. This year, for the first time, security is a central theme at the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. The security threats of the 21st century do not respect national borders, and our response should be no less international. So this week, I look forward to all our members agreeing a new cyber declaration, a powerful statement of intent. It will ensure that the internet remains free and open across the Commonwealth. It will help protect our people and our businesses from ever more sophisticated digital threats. And it will do much to counter those who would abuse the freedom of the internet to undermine our values, our security, even our democracies. We will also be taking action to tackle modern slavery. And I will be encouraging all Commonwealth members to endorse the call for action to end forced labour, modern slavery and human trafficking. I presented that call for action to the UN General Assembly last year. A dozen members of the Commonwealth have already signed up to that call, and I hope more will join them this week. And let us also make this a more prosperous Commonwealth. As President Nana Akufo-Addo of Ghana has said, free and fair trade is one of the keys to unlocking sustainable economic growth and prosperity. Over many years, it has done much to lift marginalised and vulnerable people out of poverty. Yet as we meet today, the world's economy is increasingly threatened by a prevalence of protectionist trade measures, a surge in anti-trade rhetoric, and fragile global growth. Such a climate represents a danger to us all, I have no doubt, but it is also an opportunity for the Commonwealth to demonstrate its ability to respond to these challenges and set the shape and pace of global trade policy, to go further than we've ever done before, show the world that cooperation, not protectionism, is where the answers lie. But we should not focus solely on international trade. Youth unemployment remains a bigger problem in the Commonwealth than in the wider world. If the young people of today do not have the opportunity to work, They will not become the entrepreneurs and innovators of tomorrow, and we will all suffer as a result. And that's why the UK government is putting millions of pounds into scholarships and apprenticeships to help equip the Commonwealth's young people with the skills they will need to compete on the global stage. It's a move that will make an immeasurable difference to young lives and benefit all of us in time. And finally, let us make this a fairer Commonwealth. A Commonwealth in which everyone, whoever they are, wherever they live, is free to live their life and fulfill their own potential. Right now, that is not always the case. Across the Commonwealth, tens of millions of young people, usually, but not always girls, are denied the education that would allow them to get on in life. All our members have pledged to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. But all too often young people receive only the most basic education before being forced out of school through discrimination, poverty, or simply the expectations of society. Evidence shows that young people need 12 years of quality education if they are to fulfil their potential. I want this to be the summit where the Commonwealth agrees to make that the goal for all our members and begins to put in place the concrete measures that will allow it to become a reality. And to make this happen, I can announce that the United Kingdom will be committing more than £200 million to support our fellow members in delivering the 12 years commitment. This includes funding for a policy lab that will share best practice in education. And working in tandem with the Australian government, we will be launching a digital identity innovation challenge that will help provide women and girls with the means to access fundamental services in our modern society. Together, these measures will help unlock the benefits of education for millions of young people who are currently at a disadvantage. But education alone will not remove all barriers to fairness and opportunity in our Commonwealth. Across the world, discriminatory laws made many years ago continue to affect the lives of many people, criminalising same-sex relations and failing to protect women and girls. I am all too aware that these laws were often put in place by my own country. They were wrong then, and they are wrong now. As the United Kingdom's Prime Minister, I deeply regret both the fact that such laws were introduced and the legacy of discrimination, violence, and even death that persists today. As a family of nations, we must respect one another's cultures and traditions, but we must do so in a manner consistent with our common value of equality, a value that is clearly stated in the Commonwealth Charter. Recent years have brought welcome progress. The three nations that have most recently decriminalised same-sex relationships are all Commonwealth members. And since the heads of government last met, the Commonwealth has agreed to accredit its first organisation for lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender people. Yet there remains much to do. Nobody should face persecution or discrimination because of who they are or who they love. And the UK stands ready to support any Commonwealth member wanting to reform outdated legislation that makes such discrimination possible. Because the world has changed. When, in 1953, the newly crowned Queen Elizabeth set off on a tour of the Commonwealth, She travelled by air, sea and land on a journey that took more than 5 months. Today, many of the members of the Youth Forum have only ever known a time in which they can instantly converse with one another regardless of where in the world they live. Unlike previous generations, today's young people don't need an organisation like the Commonwealth to connect them. They can build their own bridges, forge their own links, mastermind and run their own campaigns. If the Commonwealth is to endure in such a world, we must demonstrate our relevance and purpose anew. We must show what the Commonwealth is capable of, and this summit can be the moment where that change begins to happen. The Commonwealth's Blue Charter will set in train ambitious and coordinated worldwide action to help make our oceans cleaner now and in the future. Our cyber declaration will make a real difference to our safety and security. Our investments in education will allow young people the world over to fulfil their potential. Our work to boost resilience will protect our smaller members from the ravages of natural disasters. And our commitment to fight malaria will blaze a trail for the world to follow, and in doing so, save countless lives for generations to come. These are the actions of a committed and active player on the global stage, a Commonwealth with a clear role to play in the 21st century. Together, we represent a third of the nation's population, a quarter of the world's population. Together, we represent a third of the world's population and a quarter of its nations. When we speak with one voice, the world has no choice but to listen. If we step up, if we choose to act, if we embrace our future, then the Commonwealth can lead the world, the Commonwealth can inspire the world, and the Commonwealth can change the world.
Thank you very much indeed, Prime Minister, for your candid comments and also that wonderful comprehensive overview of how the Commonwealth is uniquely placed to use its comparative advantage and bring added value to global challenges. Thank you. Well, our next speaker was partly introduced by the Prime Minister, Theresa May. Bill Gates, of course, the founder of Microsoft, something that transformed all our lives. But Bill Gates, along with his wife Melinda, through their Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, continues to help transform lives through their philanthropic work, particularly in the sector of health, tackling diseases like AIDS, malaria, tuberculosis, and almost helping eliminate polio. Please do make your way to the lectern, Mr. Gates.
Well, thank you for that kind introduction. And it's a great honor to be here with the Prime Minister, today's speakers, and all of you from the different forums. 6 years ago, the Commonwealth leaders met in Perth, and one of the commitments made there was to bring new resources to polio eradication. And that made an incredible difference. In fact, because of that, we're very close to getting rid of polio. Over time, I've gained a deeper appreciation for things that the Commonwealth can make happen and how unique the Commonwealth is. There are very few organizations that bring together countries from all over the world on an equal footing to talk about a shared vision for the future. There are even fewer that bring together not just the politicians, but people through forums like the ones represented here today. There's one message that I'm often bringing to people wherever I go, that despite the tough things you hear about in the news, in fact, the world is improving. And if we do the right things, that is investing in health, education, and economic opportunity, that rate of improvement can continue to be quite rapid. One statistic that I think is almost like a key on the report card for humanity is how well we do with child survival. How many kids who are born make it to the age of 5? And so that proxy shows how we're taking our science, our resources, our ability to get out vaccines and drugs, and allowing kids to survive. And of course, in wealthy countries, a very, very small percentage of kids die. But even worldwide, there's been unbelievable progress. Back in 1990, 11 million children died, and last year it was less than 5 million. This is an especially gratifying case to make here because Commonwealth countries have driven a lot of this progress, collectively responsible for well over half the children saved over this past generation. As you can see, it goes from 5.6 million down to 2.6 million. So that's every year more than 3 million kids surviving. And that kind of progress really is due to leadership from across the Commonwealth. And we can look at that in many other measures that look at the quality of people's lives, literacy, lifespan. So for even the poorest, we are making real progress. The Prime Minister talked about the phenomenal commitments that the UK has made in malaria, and it's very exciting that we're taking the opportunity of the Commonwealth meeting to bring together the entire global malaria community. We have a meeting tomorrow where we'll look at the progress we've made. As was said, malaria deaths are down by over half, but 90% of the world's malaria burden is in Commonwealth countries. And so you have been and will continue to be in the front lines of this battle, a battle that eventually should allow us to completely eliminate malaria. Now, when I talk about this great progress, whether it's childhood death or taking diseases and bringing the cases down, I'm not saying that the progress is inevitable. That's the wrong lesson to take away from this good news. The good news is that by caring about these issues, by meeting and talking about the setbacks, talking about who's doing the best job, that's how we can invest and innovate and solve new problems. The world in 2000, through the United Nations, set the Millennium Development Goals, and more recently, in 2015, the Sustainable Development Goals. And those drive us. Those give us a measure, they give us a sense of priorities, they tell us where we want innovative new ideas. And conversations like the ones you're having here will help determine whether that progress speeds up or slows down, whether we meet those Sustainable Development Goals or whether we actually fall short. One of the ways to make progress is to look for the positive outliers. If you want to do something better, find out who's already doing it better than anyone else in the world and adopt what they're doing to your own challenges. The Commonwealth is ideal for this. You have positive outliers in almost every area of expertise, and you meet regularly to learn from one another. Polio eradication is a great example of this. For different reasons, India, Nigeria, and Pakistan are three of the places it's been most difficult to wipe out this disease. But India was declared polio-free in 2014. The lessons learned from there helped Nigeria get to 0 cases in 2017. And now Pakistan, which still has a few cases, but very few, is taking those experiences, particularly the challenges of dealing with insecurity, and they have their cases down to the lowest level area ever. And so this success really goes back to the substantial commitment that was made in Perth at the Commonwealth meeting. Collectively, Commonwealth nations are experts in far more than just polio eradication. Nobody in the world does better in education than Singapore. Bangladesh and Sri Lanka have built very high-quality primary health care systems staffed primarily by women health workers, a model that other countries are following. The island states of the Caribbean, the Pacific, and the Indian Ocean have helped the world take climate change seriously and commit to substantive action. Meanwhile, Australia, Canada, India, and the United Kingdom have pledged to double their energy innovation budgets so we can meet the challenge of climate change without denying the poorest access to the energy and electricity that they deserve. The best practices of the nations gathered here, if adopted worldwide, would revolutionize the entire world and help us solve many of our tough problems. The Commonwealth forums joining this meeting are an important source of these best practices. Together, they represent what happens when different sectors of society make the decision to drive progress by playing their unique roles. Civil societies, for example, ensure success when you need to do something massive on the scale of an entire country. Consider the Rotary Club's decision to get involved and lead on polio. In the face of challenges nobody could have predicted, Rotary Clubs across the Commonwealth have raised money, lobbied governments to make sure polio gets the attention it deserves, and most importantly, volunteered to go all over the world to deliver vaccines. Your Women's Forum, which was organized recently in 2015, and has mirrored what the development community is finally coming to realize. It's vital to center our work around women, because when women are healthier, more educated, more prosperous, they gain the power to improve their lives, and in turn, they improve the lives of everyone around them. Also, the private sector has been a vital part of global health and development efforts. When it comes to developing and delivering products and services, private companies have the vast majority of the world's expertise. Take the example of digital financial services like Kenya's pioneering M-Pesa, which has been a model for dozens of countries around the world. Time and again, when we see that when the private sector looks for opportunities to have a positive impact on people's lives, it can make development faster, cheaper, and better. Finally, youth. There are more young people in the world right now than there have ever been, and than there ever will be. As you can see from this age pyramid of the Commonwealth countries, you are collectively very young. The healthier and better educated young people are, the better equipped they will be to lead us into the future. Economists talk about the demographic dividend, and it's true that as these younger populations age, they will form the labor forces and be the engines of economic growth. Young people are also critical because they are the innovators, and innovation changes what's possible. When I started Microsoft at 19 years old, we didn't feel beholden to old notions about computers. We dreamed about the next big thing. Today, the entrepreneurs driving startups from Johannesburg to Nairobi to New Delhi are young in age and in outlook. The thousands of businesses they're creating are already remaking the future. While I'm on the subject of youth, I want to return to the idea I started with, that progress isn't inevitable. That's what I'll be talking about tomorrow at the malaria meeting. There are choices we must make today if we want to build on yesterday's progress when tomorrow comes. As long as we invest in young people, they will innovate in ways we never could have imagined and build a better life for themselves and their children. But that is not automatic. It depends on the actions that governments take, and it depends on how effectively the Commonwealth Forums organize and advocate. The goal of the foundation I run with my wife is global equity. We see a world in which every child born has an equal chance to grow up to live a healthy, happy life. That's part of what I think is so impressive about the Commonwealth. It's right there in the name. Commonwealth suggests that each of you is cooperating with the others, not so you can get ahead, but so that you can all get ahead. There's inequity within and between your countries, and nobody's denying that. But you come together and work to help make life better for every one of your citizens, and it's working. The more the rest of us follow these strong examples and focus on the common part, the better our global future will be. So it's a very exciting time to have you all come together and look at the advances each of these forums can facilitate. Thank you for having me.
Bill Gates, we salute your efforts in trying to make the world a better place and indeed applaud the achievements of your foundation and all those who work with it. Well, as Bill Gates mentioned in his presentation, one of the good things about being a member of the Commonwealth is that it automatically knocks a few years off your age if you're a Commonwealth citizen. Thank you, Commonwealth. But in fact, as somebody who doesn't need a few years knocked off his age, because he became the youngest Prime Minister ever of Jamaica in February. In February 2016 is the Right Honourable Andrew Holness, who I can say your age because you're young, you're 45, you know. And Andrew Holness worked in civil society where he did a great deal to support disadvantaged children and also has served as a Minister of Education. So we heard from the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, one of the big states of the Commonwealth, but Andrew Holness, please make your way to the stage. But this is a Prime Minister of one of the smaller states of the Commonwealth. But that's the great thing, isn't it, about the Commonwealth? Size does not matter. You're all equal at the table.
In some things, size don't matter. But thank you very much, Zainab, for that introduction. Prime Minister May, Secretary General, Bill. Can I say Bill? I'm truly honored to share this platform with such a distinguished panel, world leaders in their own right. Yes, eminent leaders forming a common future. Our common history has given us things in common, which defines us as the Commonwealth. A common language, a common law, our belief in democratic governance and transparent institutions, our shared principles, our beliefs in human rights and freedoms brings us together, even while we acknowledge our diversity, and sometimes our divergence. but it brings us together. As we are gathered here around what we have in common, we must contemplate the utility of our common bonds and use them to define our common future. A future that is fairer, more secure, more sustainable, and ultimately more prosperous. Today, we struggle with big issues. Migration, for example, is such an issue. Big issues do affect small states. Big issues sometimes have simple solutions. But oftentimes, big issues are also very complex issues. However, as we seek solutions to whether the issues are big issues or small issues, simple or complex, we should view them through the prism of whether or not the solutions are fair, whether or not they are sustainable, whether or not they really give security or only a false sense or a temporary sense of security. And ultimately, whether or not those solutions will lead to an inclusive kind of prosperity, a fair kind of prosperity. As the case now stands, and our history will show, citizens from former colonies, particularly in the West Indies, migrated to Great Britain, where they have significantly contributed to the building and enrichment of the country. Now, these persons are not able to claim their place as citizens. Prime Minister, we welcome your response, and we look forward to a speedy implementation of your proposed solution. It is only fair. It will lead to security, certainly for those who have been affected, and it is the kind of inclusive prosperity for which we stand as Commonwealth peoples. For small island states or developing countries like Jamaica, the issue of climate change is not a philosophical one. We don't have time to indulge in defending the credibility of whether or not it is real or fake. It is an existential threat in the real sense for small island developing states, such as those in the Caribbean and in the Pacific, many of whom are part of our Commonwealth. The variability in weather events or the rise in sea levels are real issues for us. Last year in the Caribbean, we experienced 3 Category 5 hurricanes. Hurricanes which wiped out entire nations. Nations who are a part of our beloved Commonwealth. Regretfully, the issue of climate change sometimes, and now speaking from a developing small island state perspective, seems to be more talk than substance. Funding for resilience, adaptation, and mitigation cannot be treated as aid. In other words, it really makes no sense that after the event has occurred, we try to rebuild through aid. It is imperative that the conversation around climate change and how it is to be financed be treated as an investment, that we make the investment in the resilience of these countries who are affected so that they can withstand, live through, and recover quickly from these variable and extreme weather events. The truth is, and it might be uncomfortable, that the countries that suffer the most are the ones that least contribute to this issue of climate change. So it is only fair. It is the only transparent and sustainable solution. It will give long-term security, and it is the kind of inclusive prosperity for which the Commonwealth stands. I want to shift a little bit, but still make a connection. Small island states and developing countries face significant economic problems. Climate change is not just an environmental problem. It is also an economic problem. The way in which the international community views the characterization of development, it is measured by GDP. And countries are classified as least developed, developing, developed, low income, middle income, high income countries. But consider the recent weather events in the Caribbean. Countries that were considered as middle income countries, overnight, literally within a few hours, their entire GDP was wiped out. Their infrastructure destroyed. How will they manage the recovery? It means that they will have to incur debt. And then we end up in a cycle that limits fiscal space for spending on the things that you've spoken about, Prime Minister: education for our young people and training. These are real issues that I believe that our community of nations in the Commonwealth should champion, a new system for classifying the development of countries, a new system at looking at graduation. Because countries who are classified as middle-income countries can no longer get access to beneficial terms for development assistance. But overnight, their GDP could be wiped out. So I think a part of our conversation about fairness and sustainable solutions, as a very powerful voice and a large part of the global population, must be to push for a new system of classification and development assistance. But I don't want it to seem that small island states and developing countries are perpetually seeking aid and assistance. That's not the case. I believe that most developing countries have fully accepted that we must take responsibility for our own development and for our future. All we ask for is a fair environment, sustainable solutions that bring long-term security and in which we can all share prosperity. And I don't stand here ignoring the issues that face developing countries that are solely within our capacity to change. Corruption within our countries, archaic, overbearing, and inefficient public bureaucracies that stifle business opportunity and slow down our productivity. Exclusion, non-transparent and non-accountable systems, and unfortunately, crime and violence, which affects the population of many developing countries. Prime Minister, I'm very happy to hear of your announcement of support for youth, and we look forward to that. With the chart that Bill showed, I made sure to look at it. It seems to me that more than 2/3 of the population of this grouping, the Commonwealth grouping, would be below 30. So it's very important that we pay attention to our young people. For many reasons, and I agree with Prime Minister May, focusing on education and training is the most important way of giving access to economic opportunity to young people. But you know what? There is sports. And we had a lovely Commonwealth game recently. And sports is important. It's important because it teaches discipline. And our young people need structure. They need a structured way to compete. But it's more than that. It teaches honesty and integrity. And we see this in the international sporting competitions, where in order to win, some feel that they need that extra artificial help. But we can use sports to teach our young people integrity, honesty, hard work, values that are shared in the Commonwealth. But there is another reason why we need to focus on young people and sports. And I'm certain that Bill will like what I'm about to say. Obesity and non-communicable diseases. This is an emerging threat in developing countries and small island states worldwide. Kids are sitting in front of the computer much longer than before. And though Prime Minister I am of a recent generation. Certainly, my generation did not have the computer to sit in front of for a very long time. But it is becoming a serious issue. And developing countries now need to take instrumental action to ensure that our young population remains healthy. So that they can fulfill the dream. I'm very happy to be here, obviously. But my presence here shows the strength of the Commonwealth, that it gives a platform for the big, so size matters in some instances, and it doesn't in others. But that's the strength of our family. And the principles, the values that we espouse, they keep us together. And even if we have divergent views, and even if we have differing interests, our common shared history can be used as a utility for our future development and advancement in a fairer, more secure, more sustainable, more prosperous future. I thank you.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness, thank you very much indeed for bringing that perspective of these small island developing states and also reminding us that despite families having their family squabbles, they are still family. I wish to thank all our panel for their wonderful presentations today. I would like to ask you all to remain because we still have a couple of things I'd like to bring to you. But thank you all very much indeed. Patricia Scotland, Prime Minister Theresa May, Bill Gates and Andrew Holness, thank you so much indeed for being on this plenary. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I would like to ask to come to the stage somebody who really is a very inspiring lady. Carlo Mila is of Tongan descent, but was born in New Zealand, and she writes poetry derived from her Tongan identity. And indeed, your work is taught in schools and universities right across the South Pacific. And you've penned something, especially for this session, drawing on all the common themes of the CHOGM summit this year. Thank you, Carlo.
Maluelele, talofa lava, nisa bulivinaka, talohani, tēnā koutou, kia ora, hui hui mai anō tātou katoa. We gather here and feel the weight of the world on our shoulders. It does not feel like we've inherited common wealth, but rather common problems. If we are to heed the words of poets, Ben Okri said yesterday, we have entered the garden of nightmares and wonders. The giants have woken and they are stirring. We need to be roused from the beauty of our sleep. Indeed, we have entered this strange garden in this city, epicenter of epitaph, epitome of empire, The stones in the squares remind us that we all died for this. The war memorials murmur numbers, not names. We bring our dead with us, and they are already here. Not just the ones marked by marble, but our ancestors, the original inhabitants of the lands discovered, who lie in the unmarked graves and unmentioned massacres, in battles unspoken of, in untaught wars. We carry them like stones in our bodies. They too contribute towards this commonwealth. They gave more than they should have. Commonwealth, we come with twin sides of the same story, either trauma or gain, both of it pain, two sides of the same coin, heads or tails. The head is the same on most of our money. The Commonwealth, it does not always feel like riches. Although we gather to speak of fairer futures, truth be told, it is the fear of the future that we have most in common. But I did not come to sing a siren song on the sinking ship of empire. I come to sing of sinking islands in the South Pacific on the blue continent where I come from. For what is at stake is the very land we stand on. The earth itself rejects us. It reneges its responsibilities. It has retreated back into the deep. And if the ocean could speak in that choked, overheated throat, gagged with plastic bags in a way she once spoke to us and we could listen, she would say too much salt on her tongue, rising with a surety we have never seen before. She would say, enough. If ever we needed to wake from our sleep and hear the call of the Commonwealth, it is now. The islands of Oceania, Kiribati, Tuvalu, Samoa, Tonga, Fiji, Vanuatu. We are the canaries in the coal mines of climate change, singing and ringing the unruly bells, beating the big drums, and yet drowned out. So here we gather, the call of the Commonwealth, and yet it is the uncommonwealth that may save us all, although it was almost completely silenced, schooled out of us in lost languages that were beaten out of the mouths of children. There, it is there, the answers in cultures that hold a wealth of knowledge, intergenerational meditations on what it means to be alive, what it means to survive, knowledge that has evolved in a certain set of conditions, specific parameters of earth, sea, and sky, each of us holding a long gestated piece of the puzzle on how to be human and thrive. It is a precious, peopled offering. For when we are all thinking the same, no one is really thinking. It is a knowledge retrieved in the ruins of our histories, in what is left of us, in what we have fought for. Ka whawhai tonu mātou ake, ake, ake. There lies the most precious offerings to the Commonwealth, alongside the positive outliers of our ongoing innovation. Here lies the heart of who we are and what we have to offer. Let us share. My people have always known that we are all relatives, common ancestor, the same stardust in all of our bones. The rocks, the trees, the leaves, all of these, all relatives, all of us, part of the family of things. And one ancestral word at a time, we are salvaging what has been savaged. These backward ways of being in the world that may take us forward, that wake us up to all we are dependent upon and open our eyes as the giants sleep. Science seems to take such a long time to catch up with us. Richard Dawkins, the evolutionary biologist, can confirm scientifically that the lettuce is our distant cousin. But the stories we live by have not changed. If we were truly to reorient to life as relatives, commonwealth would mean more than what we might cling to in the face of a dangerous and uncertain future. Let us not use the word commonwealth to try and insulate fate with the soft fur of fine-feathered friends. No, let us spread our wings to a vision much greater than that. It may be the end of the world as we know it, but let us not fear the remaking of another one. And to our young people, there may be no jobs, but there is plenty of work to be done. Let us harness our collective wisdom, diverse, different, and divergent. Let us create an atmosphere of kindness and love for even the air we breathe, fresh water, trees, people, oceans. Let us create a house of dreams, a great place to raise a family. For what is at stake is the fate of an extraordinary family of relatives, where what we have in common is all of us. Thank you.
Carlo, thank you. Carlo, thank you very much indeed for that powerful, moving, and those exquisite words which contain such an important message for all of us. So our final presentation is from a young Pakistani activist, now a student at Oxford University, of course the youngest ever recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize, Malala Yousafzai, who since the age, via video link I have to say, sorry, good news and bad news. And since the age of 11, of course, she's been an advocate for girls' education. And of course, as we all know, at the age of 15, she was an assassination attempt by the Taliban in her native Pakistan. So please do play the video from Malala Yousafzai.
Prime Minister May, Prime Minister Holness, Your Excellencies and esteemed guests, as a proud daughter of Pakistan, a UK resident and a Commonwealth citizen, it is an honor for me to be speaking to you today. As we know that investing in girls' education grows economies, improves health, and reduces conflict and climate change, and yet 130 million girls right now are out of school, and 2/3 of these girls are in the Commonwealth countries. So, if we want to improve the Commonwealth economies, if we want to bring peace and prosperity, we must invest in girls. To the Commonwealth leaders, I ask you to commit 20% of your budget to safe and quality education for all girls and boys in the Commonwealth countries. To the business leaders, I ask you to recognize the link between girls' education and improved economies and labor workforce improvement. And to young people sitting here, I want you to come together and fight for a future of the Commonwealth where every girl and every boy can have access to safe and quality education. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Malala Yousafzai. So when you all came in, you may have flattened your invitations to lunch. I suggest you retrieve them because there is a lunch which is being hosted in partnership with the Eden Project. And in fact, there have been lunches taking place right across the Commonwealth. And it's an opportunity for all of you to get to know one another, see what kind of things are on offer across the different floors. I hope you all enjoy your lunch. I hope you all enjoy getting to meet those you don't know and getting to know those you do know a little bit better. It's been my pleasure to be with all of you. Enjoy the rest of the summit. Goodbye.